look at your brother beside you to your left or to your right and declare these words with me. Say, brother, it's now or never. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. It's now or never. Adversity. All of us know a little about adversity. For when the word adversity is clearly defined, it means misfortune, disaster. It means distress. It means calamity. It means hardship. And if we'll be truthfully honest with ourselves, everybody in this room can say they've had some hardship. I don't care how much money you may have. I don't care if you were born with a silver spoon, a wooden spoon, or no spoon at all. You've had some hardship. Not just some hardship, but you've had some calamity. And whether you want to come to grips with it or not, there have been times in your life and some situations in your life that you don't even want to talk about. There are some things about you as a man, if you would just be honest with yourself for probably about the next 20 minutes and just say, Lord, you know, there are some parts of my story that I don't want to tell nobody. There are some parts of my story I wish nobody ever knew. There are some things about my past I wish I could erase. But aren't you glad that you serve a God that has the ability of erasing what you, and he won't, listen here, God is the God that won't hold your past against you. That even when your brother, your sister, your friend, and whoever else that it was saw you do it, God says, I'll throw it into the sea of forgetfulness that we don't even have to remember it anymore. That's what lets me know that there is something so awesome about being a man. You know, I know if there were women here today, they would probably look at us funny and say, wait a minute, brother preacher, but us women got things that we got to deal with, but we got that going on too. But as men, we have a responsibility. We are the warrior. We are the priest of our home. Some of us are the priest of our family. And when you really look at it, you will find out that some of the hell you're dealing with right now has to do with what God's called you to do. Whether you've taken your rightful place or not, a lot of what you've dealt with, a lot of what you've seen, all has to do with the purpose that's on your life. And so we find here, Brother David is now coming back from Philistine camp, and he has his men with him, and they are really, if you study the scripture, you'll find out that they're not coming back jubilant, but they're coming back discouraged, because they've been in a Philistine camp, to whereas even though they are the Philistines' enemy, they've been put under witness protection. Isn't it funny, men, think back just for a few moments, isn't it funny that how sometimes what you went through, even though you knew that the Lord had his hand on you, God allowed you to be put under witness protection in the enemy's camp? Lord have mercy. Y'all may not agree with it. You may not understand. Bishop, I don't understand. What do you mean I was under witness protection? Some things that you did in your life, you can't even figure out why you were doing it. Some places you were, you can't even attest why you were there. And the reason that you can't attest why you were there and why you were doing it, and it felt like you were out of yourself doing it, is because God had your steps ordered that he would put you in it, because he was trying to reserve you for a time such as, Lord have mercy, he was trying to reserve you for such a time as this. I often tell people that the Lord had gave me the ministry that he's given me now, then I would have lost it. If he had gave me the wife that I got now, then I would have messed it all up. Because even when I felt like I was ready, I wasn't ready. Even when I felt like I had all the strength in the world, I could not do it, because there was still some folly in me. Lord Jesus, y'all excuse me. I'm just one of them type of preachers. I'm going to let it be like it is. I don't care how you look at me. I don't care how. Sometimes you just got to be real with yourself. And so David is struggling in his mind. Why is he struggling in his mind? Because he knows privately he's already been anointed for next. It's something when you have been anointed for something, but what you've been anointed for is trying to kill you. Lord have mercy. He's anointed to be the king, but the king that's on the throne want to kill him, because he got a sense that something has changed about this man. I believe that a lot of the plight of the African-American church and the African-American men is that we've continued to allow society to label us as something that we're not. And instead of trying to come out of our homes and not just being Superman out in the street, but come home and be Superman, and not just let them see us as Clark Kent and we always running, putting out everybody else's fire. And then when we come home, we plop in front of the television. We act like nothing. We don't talk to our sons. We don't talk to our daughters. But then when they get knocked up pregnant, we want to stand up and we want to be daddy and we want to try to beat it out of them. When our sons end up in jail, we want to go to jail and tell them how there'll never be anything. But when the truth of the matter comes to saying, we got to understand that we've had the opportunity to make them what they should have been. We just haven't took that opportunity and haven't taken what we've got in front of us. And so David has some issues. I always will say, if David grew up in a dysfunctional family, I know some of y'all ain't grew up in dysfunction, but I'll tell you, I know I grew up in some dysfunction. I grew up in some crazy type situations that I always wanted to ask my mama, but mama, why we living over here, but in the next year we moving over there? Why in the world is my mama, and why mama and daddy not together, but everybody else is mama and daddy together? Why in the world why I got to go to school on this side of the town when I live on that side of town? Sometimes you may not want to attest to it, but you grew up in some dysfunction too. Yeah, okay. You won't be quiet. You don't know who your real daddy is, but you know Papa was your dad. Okay, you know, you call him uncle, but he was really your daddy, but mama just didn't want to tell you to hurt your feelings. And so we grew up in dysfunction, and when we don't confront our own dysfunction, dysfunction will begin to brew within us, and we'll start birthing again what we did not confront. And David's whole entire life has to deal with how Jesse treated him. Jesse didn't love him enough to let him live in the house, but he put him out with the sheep. And so now he's coming to fact, Lord, you want to use me, the one that's least among my brothers, but you want to put your hand on me. I come to tell you this morning, you're the one that God wants. You're the one that he needs. Why do you say that, Bishop? I've gone through so much. I've dealt with so much. Can I tell you that the mere fact that you went through it and you still living means that he just didn't want you to be a survivor. He wanted you to be a conqueror. I'll give you one better than that. He wants you to be more than a conqueror. So if it couldn't kill you then, it can't kill you now. Tell your brother you done seen your kid, no understanding. It hurt, but now it's time for you to heal. We can't keep acting like daddy won't that. We can't keep acting like somebody didn't touch you wrong. You can't keep acting like they were just pushing me out to be boys. You got to understand it happened, but it all happened to better you. See, society and psychologists, and they want to let us think that a lot of stuff that we went through worked against us, but I want to let you know Romans said that all things work together for the good of them who are called according to his purpose. It's his purpose that I had to go through some of the stuff that you went through. It's his purpose that's causing you to look like you're going the long route. Sometimes I wake up, Pastor Florence, and I say, Lord, it seems like I should be so much further than what I am right now. And I say, Lord, it seems like these other jokers that get up behind me, these upstarts, and they just zip on back. And I'd be like, Lord, where they come from? We went to Bishop Jakes' Pastors and Leadership Conference in Orlando, and Bishop Jakes was sitting down talking. He was talking to our boy out down there, and he said, he said, I tell you what, he said, this guy is just coming out of nowhere. Joel Osteen was sitting there just like a little child listening to Bishop Jakes. He said, you know what? He said, when I came out, I worked for all this stuff that I've done. He said, I've gone through the Chitlin circuit, and I did my due. The Potter's house just didn't jump up overnight. He said, but I'm cruising in my jet. He said, but all of a sudden, a Lear jet comes right by me. He said, and in the clouds written, Joel Osteen. He said, what took me over 35 years to build, this man walks into it and makes it look like what I worked hard for was just handed to him. And sometimes as men, we can get upset because how many times it looked like where there was no door, we were cutting doors and we were breaking windows and we were trying to do all this stuff. Where Harry at? We were fighting in Reedsville so that the Klan didn't march through town, and we would stand. Y'all may not. I remember when the Klan would talk about that, and we standing on the side of the road like some clown talking about you. And when I found out they want to march again, I said, let them march. I'm coming to Greensboro this time. And I'm going to let them know. I'm going to make some noise. You want some baseball? I'll bring my baseball back. Matter of fact, I'm going to put a hood on so that they can't understand who doing what in my identity. But there are days, I remember people of old like Spencer Gwynn that had the men in the community doing so much stuff. And Willie Boyd had the people in the community doing so much stuff and were educating our black brothers. But now we've come into a day we ain't got nobody that's standing up saying nothing. We letting them wear the pants down below their tail. They riding around with little cars with big wheels on them. The last big wheel I had, Brother Hooper, was a big wheel. But we letting our daughters run after foolish stuff while we sit back and say nothing. I'm telling the men in this room, you need to stand up and take your place. It's now or never. We don't have another week. We don't have another 10 years to help them get it right. It's now or never. Because every day that we remain silent, the world grows louder in their ears. So David has to do all, he has to go through all of this stuff in his mind. And the very people that he's helped, talking about killing. David said, Lord, my family's gone. Now, my friends are gone. Now the people I'm leading want to kill me. I know all y'all in this room ain't no pastor, so just put your head down. But sometimes, even the very people that you stand up and fight for, and you defend, and you go to court for, and you pay their light bills, and you try to bail them out and help them out, and you do everything. You pray for them when they ain't even praying for themselves. You going to, even sometimes there will come a day when their voices will rise up against you and say, I'm going to take you out. But thanks be unto God. David said, wait a minute. Abiathar, go and get the ephod. I know everybody else may have deserted me, but there's still one person I need to talk to. And in the face of defeat, David adorns himself in the ephod and seeks the Lord and said, Lord, now, I ain't been the most perfect person. You all know me. You know. Even before I did it, you knew I was going to get there. That's why you love me, because I can be honest with you. I want to know all this stuff. They've burnt the city down. They've taken everything we got. What shall I do? Shall I pursue after them? He said, because I feel like just running away again. Sometimes in life, when you've gone through some, we were just sitting at the table talking, sometimes cycles will happen in your life. But when will you decide to break the cycle? Cycles can only continue when you have a mindset that I'm going to let it continue. So you know that there are some things in your family that's been going on for generations. It would seem like you ought to be the one to stand up and say, well, I'm going to break it. Oh, Lord, have mercy. Everybody that's in this room is a man. Well, at least we hope they may not do some change. Everybody in this room is a man, which means you are the seed giver, which means you are the blood giver. So I don't care how much they may look like your mama if you got kids, they carry your blood. Because the blood with the woman don't match with that of the father or the child. So every time she becomes pregnant, she's literally bearing you. Lord have mercy. So you got to understand, whatever you dealt with in life, if you don't address it, your child behind you gonna have to deal with it. Whether you didn't address it, or your father didn't address it, or his father didn't address it, it's gonna continue to come down through that bloodline. But it's now or never. You got to say, it stops here. This is where the buck is gonna stop. Truman said the buck stops here. I gotta understand that there are some things in my lineage I can't let go no further. We've always wondered why in the world we ain't had no kids yet, because there were some things I had to break. Lord have mercy, Jesus. So he's facing all this stuff, and out of his question, God responds. Pursue. Lord, but how am I going to pursue something when I'm the only one that want to pursue it? They talking about killing me. And you telling me pursue. But Lord, everybody tired. We'd been marching for 3 days because of the distance of the journey, which means that in one day they would march 25 miles. So you saying in the last 3 days we done went 75 miles and now you talking about go a little further? Pursue. But Lord, I ain't got no strength. I ain't got no energy. I don't even have the resources to do what you're telling me to do right now. I know you telling me that start this business, and I know you telling me it's time for me to take the ministry in a new direction, but Lord, I just can't see it. Pursue. Lord, I know you're telling me to write this book. Pursue. I know you're telling me to go back to school. Pursue. Everything that we keep asking the Lord, it seems like he come back and say, pursue. But he didn't stop there. He says, and without fail, recover all. Now, when he said recover all, I thought he was just talking about the stuff they lost. They done burned down our town. They done took our goats. They done took our donkeys. They done took our sheep. They done took our water. They done took our tents. They got our women. They got they got the cockroaches and they got it all. I thought you were just talking to me about pursuing my stuff. But when you read on, you'll find out that when he decided to pursue and got to the enemy's camp and he overcame the enemy, even though some escaped, the Bible said that all the stuff that the Amalekites had plundered was waiting for them. Which lets me know there are some people you know, there are some men you know that the Lord has said, pursue, but they did not pursue. But because you decided to pursue it, God said, now that you've gone, everything that they lost but did not go to the claim window to pick up, I'm going to let you take that stuff too. So the hell that you've gone through has just not been for you. It's been for everybody else that decided not to come with you. I'm telling you, there are some people I know that, you know what, I'm often amazed. Y'all probably see it, the living reason, because y'all live here. You probably can think in your mind. There are people that I went to school with that are still doing the same thing that they were doing when we were in school. There are people, as a child growing up, that are standing on the same corners that they standing on now, and that's 35 years ago. I remember that I couldn't understand everything. Y'all don't remember the block, but I remember when the block was the block and why people would just stand there. It was because they could not release themselves from what was. They were so caught up in the past, they couldn't accept the present, but they yet couldn't embrace the future. And so some of them died caught up in the day of old. But I come to tell y'all, I'm not going to be like my schoolmates that are still standing around doing the same thing, looking the same way, driving the same way, smoking the same way, drink. I can't let my life keep going by, but I got to be about my Father. Can't depend on the women praying all the time. The women are only doing it because men won't take their place. So it's time for us to pursue. Because if we pursue,